Welcome to our new series. It's 5 o'clock somewhere with Mike and Ilana. Cheers.
Salute.
Awesome.
In honor of Jimmy Buffett.
That's right.
Very timely. No, but it's really cool. We work on a global team, and it's 8 p.m. for me, but I don't even know what time it is in Denver. Maybe like 10 a.m. So it's nice that we get to converse while he's having his morning coffee and I'm having my evening wine, and we can just chat about everything. But this is our new LinkedIn series. We're going to be doing this about every 2 weeks. We're going to talk about CDPs, CDXPs, the importance of implementing it at dealerships on both the tier 1 and tier 3 level. And speaking of tier 1, Mike, do you want to share some exciting news that we have?
Yes, and first of all, thank you for everyone.
Right. Sorry. Well, I
Excited
didn't
about
introduce
this,
you yet,
and we're
Chico.
gonna
You
be
gotta
stuff over the
stay in
next
the
coming months,
waiting
but,
room there.
Just recently, our new friend and partner, Mr. DeChico, and team just worked with Maserati, and we are officially are approved with Maserati for a whole CDXP.
That is amazing news. We're really excited about it. And we have Mike DeChico here, who's our VP of Business Development at Fullpath. He's actually been on the Inside Auto podcast. I really highly recommend everyone listen to that episode. Tell us about the OEM programs, how it's going, what else we have in store. Well, you might not be able to share those secrets, but anything that you can share with us here.
Yeah, I can't tell you all the deals we have coming down the pipe, but there's like the interest from the manufacturer level in CDPs and connecting the data across tier 1 through 3 is like totally the zeitgeist right now. Like that's what everybody wants to talk about, is like we're spending all of this money and how can we account for how much revenue, like how many sales this is really driving, what's our customer experience like, all of that kind of stuff. So that is like the core topic, like it's interesting because you've got the manufacturer has the same goals as the dealer, right? They want to sell as many cars as possible. But interestingly enough, here in the States, we have and you guys over in Europe, you have, and in the Middle East, you have a very different system that we have here in the States. So, we are working with the manufacturers to say, how do we get your message as a manufacturer down to the dealer? And then how do we get the dealer to put out their messaging in such a way that it's reflective of what you're trying to accomplish, but also reflective of what the individual dealer's goals are? So that all comes down to customization and personalization in the messaging. And so that's what's getting the manufacturers like really excited about what we're doing, is like being able to deploy content across multiple channels in a really personalized way and then measure the efficacy of that every single day is like what they've wanted to do for the past 30 years but haven't been able to do. So it's really cool to see it all kind of coming together now.
Yeah, and I think there's also emphasis on, just recently the Maserati OEM partnership, they didn't, approve only one solution of the platform. They actually approve the entire platform, which means that there's really buy-in and understanding of how important it is to break down those silos and invest in a CDP, CDXP platform, right? It's not just about like, oh, let me have really smart dig ad and then, figure out the rest somewhere else. They're really investing in showing how important it is to actually have a full CDXP platform.
Yeah, absolutely. So many some of the programs that we're in for just one or two products. It's a great point, Ilana, but like the real power comes from the interconnectivity of all of it, right?
Yeah.
So, we can go and we can crush it with digital advertising, but when you marry digital advertising with audience activation and equity, it's like a totally different product. It's a game changer, right? So this is where now the manufacturers and large dealer groups and folks are starting to see like, okay, we've got, let's say in the case of Maserati, you've got 123 dealers using a various assortment of digital products for CRM, for DMS, whatever it might be. How do you standardize all of that data and make sense of it when you have such a variable tech stack? And that's what we're able to do for them. It's like, automotive is always behind every other vertical, right? Like you've worked in a lot of other places outside of automotive, and like it's funny to see how When we finally decide to do something in automotive, we go like wicked hard into it. There's my New England stuff, but like we'll go super hard in automotive once we realize like, oh yeah, we need to do that. Then all of a sudden everybody jumps on board, and that's where we're at right now. Like it's really cool to be at Fullpath because we're kind of like sitting in the center of the conversation in the industry right now, and it's cool.
Yeah.
Not often in your career do you get to like sit at a place where you feel like your company is ahead as opposed to catching up to everybody else. So it's been a lot of fun to work with these manufacturers because they get it. They totally get it.
That's great. And unfortunately, we lost Claudio, but at least I got another mic here.
We got another mic. I'll pretend I can go like this with my hands. I know he likes to do that. So I can go like this.
That's the perfect Mike Claudio move.
Right? It's like, ugh.
Yeah, and well, I'll do his part. He wanted to talk. Well, you could do the hand movements, and I can do that. But anyway, he really wanted to talk a little bit about audience suppression and ad suppression because I know that's something that a lot of people are talking about now. We were recently on a call with Brian Pash, and he was also bringing it up how that is an absolute critical part of the CDP or CDXP, whatever you're investing in, making sure that you're not just sending the message to the right person at the right time, but also when that person is no longer relevant for that message, move them out of that audience, suppress that audience, and put them into a different audience. And you mentioned, like, once you layer in sales, service, and equity, you're then just constantly speaking to them and creating customers for life. So you're going to be able to move them from campaign to campaign and increase the LTV of any customer at any given point.
Absolutely. It totally makes sense. Like, it's funny because, you'll say you're running like retargeting ads, right? Say you got it on like a 30-day or 45-day cycle. But that person buys on like day 2. Now, I mean, we all experience this in our everyday lives, right? Like, so I just bought a shirt from Linksol, big fan of their stuff, right? I bought a shirt from them. I am like 2 weeks ago, and I'm still being retargeted for the shirt that I bought, right? So they're just wasting their money on me, and I feel bad, I'm like, I almost want to write them a note and say, hey guys, like I already bought the shirt, Stop spending your money on me. I like you guys. Don't waste your money, right? But we kind of do all of that automatically, which is really cool. And so if somebody just bought a car next week, why shouldn't they now not be getting advertising for accessories or an extended warranty that they might have 40 or 50 days to decide to buy, right? Like that's the sort of thing you can do when you connect the data sources together. You can be hyper targeted. So, it's not a new conversation, but it's new in execution, right? Like to be able to actually pull it off is different than saying, wouldn't it be cool if we could? That's where we're at now is we're actually doing it. And we save, the industry average for savings on ad suppression for dealers on dig ads is about 12 to 15% per month.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And it sounds like a lot, but when you think about service customers and service transactions occurring in the DMS that we're pulling away from advertising, that's about 50x the amount of sales transactions that are happening in the service drive. So if you're running a balanced advertising strategy on sales and service, you will see a huge reduction in ad cost when you're doing suppression.
And what do you see? Sorry, I've been having camera.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back, Claudio.
I'm back.
We were trying to do the Claudio without
I was trying to do the Mike Claudio claw move. You do this like claw thing, yeah.
It's called illustrating your point.
It's okay. It's illustrative.
Yeah. But when you see that at like a large dealer group size or an OEM level, I mean that 15 to 20% multiplied by 100, 200, 500, 3,000. That adds up to a lot of money, right?
Oh my God. Yes, totally, man. Like it's, and especially like think about if you're a large dealer group and you are focused in a DMA. So many dealers right now are like, they run independent operations, right? Like, this Ford store in New York, and we have a Chevy store in New York, and those guys go to war, right? Personally, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. If you connect their data, and there's only so many in-market customers shopping for a car, right? So let's say that I go and I buy a car at the Ford store. Now, of course, I should be suppressed from the Ford store's advertising, or my advertising should change. But why should all of the other stores in the group still be trying to sell me a car, right? So when you,
Right.
because I already bought one and I bought one from somebody in the group, so yay, right? Shut off all the other stores. So it's not just the ad savings, it compounds because others don't have to spend the money, because you know what I mean? Like, so you're dead right, Mike. Like, it's like if you blow that out, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars in ad savings.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, and you touched on it, is flipping the message, right? So like when you're at a dealership and you're trying to get the customer in to actually either come back and buy, meaning you're increasing the LTV of that customer, but how do you know when to flip it to service, right? And then flipping it to service, and I think one of the really cool things that we're having some conversations with some OEMs on is there's this massive, massive opportunity with connected vehicle data. And as you shift that and you start integrating and you start reducing and getting better information in, when you shift that to then now say, all right, I know where I'm at. I bought the car, and oh, either my check engine light or tire pressure or X or Y or Z. Now, when you take vehicle data and you inject that in to then do messaging one-to-one, plus you're saving money on that. I mean, the experience side on that, and that's really at the core of what CDPs are really focusing on, is like know where the customer is at in their journey, and then also serve up messaging based on it. But if you're not suppressing ads, to your example of the shirt, like why would you be getting the ads based off of something you already purchased? Whoever you bought it from did their job. And now
Right.
they're just like hitting you over the head and be like, buy another one, buy another one, buy another one. And it doesn't make sense.
It's not a good look, right? It's not a good look if you just bought a car and then you're continuing to get ads for the rest of the month or whatever for other vehicles, you know? And it's actually there's a real downside to it too if you're not doing suppression, if you've got incentives or certain pricing things going on. So let's say a customer takes advantage of a certain incentive or a certain price, and then they're at a place in the cycle where the incentives change, and now you retarget them with a better deal for the car that they just bought. Like, that's bad news. You really don't want to do that, you know? So like you can avoid like all those awkward conversations by just using technology to be able to suppress. It's all like very commonsensical stuff, but like we said, it's just now it's actually you can actually execute on that common sense approach, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mike, you missed this, but we were sort of segueing between obviously the audience suppression, ad suppression, but also the fact that we released the news about being Maserati approved, but also Maserati actually certified the entire CDXP, meaning they're believing in the fact that there is this concept of breaking down silos and actually, leveraging and activating that data so that you can have the most sophisticated marketing. So we hope that we'll see more manufacturers do that. And I think, Mike DeChico won't spill any secrets here, but it seems like
Well,
in the
what do you
works.
like? What are you seeing? Like what
Yeah,
like
we'd
as
love
you're
to know.
talking with brands? Like what
Yeah.
are you seeing a lot of people, or are they trying to figure out like connecting tier one, tier three? Like
Yeah, I mean that's like the struggle that we've been dealing with for 20 years, right? Is like how does the brand get what they want, which is a really strong customer experience, and they get, brand recognition, and they move metal, right? And the dealer wants the same thing, they do. And the dealer doesn't want to be constrained either because they've spent 50 years, 100 years building their own personal brand, right, in their local market. So you do have these kind of competing brands, but with the same goals. And what we're hearing in the space is that manufacturers are now starting to understand that if the more we get our dealers connected to their data and get visibility into it, the more effective we can be with our advertising campaigns to help the dealer, the more effective we can be with incentive structures for the dealers, because they're going to understand consumer behavior at tier 3 better than they ever have before, which will help them at tier 1 to create effective campaigns and structures, right? So what we're seeing now is we're doing more direct OEM direct campaigns than we ever have before, because we're taking the tier 3 data, which right now most manufacturers aren't connected the way that they could be to tier 3 data. So what we do is we serve it up to them and say, hey, here's what's going on in your entire data in your entire dealer network. Here are the vehicles that aren't moving, and a lot of them intuitively know this stuff. The problem is that it's very difficult for them to take action on that, right? So that's where we come in and we say we can run. So for example, with Maserati, and I don't think they would be upset if I said this, but they have had difficult time moving a new model called the Grecale. There's not as much consumer awareness as there should be for a product like that in the space. So what we're able to do is say, hey, you're having a difficult time moving these Grecales. Let's focus on these specific VINs of Grecales that have been kind of sitting here for a while. The dealer doesn't want to floor plan them anymore. We got to get rid of these things. Maserati's there to help and say, let's put money behind these VINs and move them out. And it works, right? And the only way that works is if there's a connection between 1 and 3, where one gets the data that they need to actually be able to execute on behalf of tier 3, and they're doing it for the dealer's benefit. So I think that's where there's been a big kind of disconnect over the years that we're starting to see close, right? Where the dealer understands now, like, hey, if I fall in line with what the manufacturer wants to do and I share with them the data that they need, they're actually going to try to help me because we both have the same goal. So it's cool to kind of see how that's like evolving over time. We're old sea dogs. I've been around in this business for a long, long time. So it's cool to see how they're thinking differently about how they can help one another, as opposed to what, in a lot of times in the States, has been not combative, but I wouldn't say exactly kumbaya relationship between the manufacturer and the dealers.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it, Ilana, we got to get like a soundboard as we continue to do this, where we can like start inserting soundboards of good words. But yeah, I mean, I think the other thing is like we're starting to see this. I think CDK is launching a new open ecosystem, but I think a lot of it really comes down to like how much data can we connect. And if you guys haven't watched the Dreamforce webinar that was out, I think like 2 days ago, day or two ago, which for people that don't know what Dreamforce is, it's Salesforce's big developer conference, similar to like Apple's event and whatnot. But the common theme that they said, and if you watch Dreamforce, is that Salesforce's whole presentation now is, obviously they have a multitude of stuff. They have Data Cloud, they have Service Cloud, they have all of these things that, Salesforce has a CDP, but the common theme that they spoke about in the entire process was, one, reducing silos of data so you can get a true view of your customer. And when you have a true view of your customer, what then can you enable based off of the activity that's being injected into the actual view of a customer? And if you take that back to the OEM side on tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, is that connection and endpoint, really will start to, shorten based off of us getting into a better ecosystem. But the other thing that they actually mentioned was how leveraging AI in a safe way, right? If you're an enterprise and you're just letting, your stuff, and we've taken parameters on our end to make sure that any data that we're doing for our GPT product is isolated only there. We're not sharing that out to let what is called a large language model. Also know another acronym for people to learn is LLM. Is that using that to be that much more efficient is super, super powerful. And for people to be effective in the future is leveraging AI to actually make those decisions. And that is also another segue. So I thought it was very interesting is that it's like foreshadowing where we're going in automotive. Obviously they work with the biggest brands in the world, but where we ultimately end up here is data connectivity. And that is a problem all over the place.
It is. And one of the things too that so think about phone versus forms, right? Like phone calls are still the dominant way in which consumers contact dealerships. And I mean, I'm just going to toot our own horn here, right, for a second. But we've been working with phone companies like Invoca and others, and we launched an integration where we're actually using the call transcription data in advertising retargeting. Like that's where this is going. Like we're moving to a place where we are omnipotent, right? Omniscient. What I don't know, I can't remember think of what the word is, but like we know all. And what it allows us to do is, if we know all, we can deliver a ridiculously good consumer experience. And so like there's fear in connecting data, right? And there's fear in using automation and AI. However, we're all experiencing it every day in our daily lives, right? Like some say that Amazon is like just a giant CDP because it literally knows everything you do, what you're doing, what you're looking at, what you're buying, who your people are, like everything, and it's suggesting to you things that you should buy. And guess what? It works, right? So like if we do that same thing in automotive, and that's why I say this call tracking innovation is a really big deal, because if the majority of conversations or the majority of interactions with dealers are happening over the telephone, and you're not capturing that data to use for the next marketing action, then it's a huge black hole in what you could be doing. So the example that we like to use, which is a real world example, is we had, we're Stellantis certified, and we have hundreds of Stellantis dealers, and the ones that started using this Invoca integration, a consumer was being targeted for a Cherokee, right? Now the consumer's calls into the dealership about the Cherokee because they were getting retargeted for it, right? During the transcription of the call, which we capture in the CDP, the salesperson said, you really should be looking at a Wagoneer because you've got a bigger family, and I don't know if you know this, but the Cherokee doesn't have a third row. And the consumer's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. I thought all Grand Cherokees came with the third row. They said, no, you really should be looking at this particular model. Now, by the next day, we were retargeting that consumer for Wagoneers based on the conversation. And that's just crazy. Like, Nobody's doing that, right? So, and then we were actually able to show that the consumer submitted a lead for the Wagoneer, talked to the same salesperson, and bought the car. And it was like, boom, like, this needs to happen in all dealerships if the majority of your interactions are over the phone. Big deal, right? So that's where it's all going, right? How do we connect all of this stuff in a way where the consumer gets the best experience, and it accelerates the sales process because of that, So I'll shut up now and let you guys talk.
Nice. That was actually a great example. Thanks for sharing. It was wonderful. It was just missing Mike's hand motions, but other than that, we were just no, it was great.
Hey,
it's really important.
I was watching the video on equity that we just rolled out, and I noticed that I had to keep my hands very tucked in right here so I could keep them from flailing around. But like,
it's a unique thing you do. And I'm not making fun of it.
Open environment right now.
It's your brand, Claudio.
It's brand. Right.
Don't be ashamed of your brand.
Put those meat hooks out there, dude. Move them around.
Awesome. Well, listen, we hit some good things at this on this episode of our new show, which is very exciting, right? And just hit us up in the comments on what you want us to talk about in the next 2 weeks, and we'll bust it out. We'll bring some guests if you're interested in coming on. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. We don't judge what you drink at any time of the day. So
never.
Join us next time. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike.
I'm going to queue up any sponsors from wine or tequila or whiskey that want to sponsor the 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, we are looking for sponsorships. We will taste test any wine you want to send us. So feel free. And thank you again. This was fun.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Thanks, guys.
Bye
now.